Time for the big three. Three stocks, three charts, three trades. And Kevin Green will take us through the charts. Here to take us through the trades, Jessica Inskip, Director of Investor Research at stockbrokers.com. Great to see you both. Jessica, some of your thoughts about the market here. I mean, we're now in the last 5 days of trading and 2 days in the new year, right? They always look for the Santa Claus rally there. What are you looking for when you're looking at the market now?
It's still the same thing. I think Powell introduced uncertainty in regard to fiscal policy, which really, really spooked the market. But if we take a step back and look at the data, which he is looking at, and we get more positive data, we still see a resilient consumer. It's interesting to me even how the market's reacting to the 10-year today. So kind of to put that all together, I see the Fed's impact on the curve and then the market mechanics that happen at the long end of the curve. And I just want to still see that Fed easing policy, but also how the market mechanics and reactions are. I've been watching that 10-year because of housing. He alluded to that coming down eventually or finally coming down within the inflation data. So it's really this big picture and puzzle and everything falling into place almost where it needs to be, Nicole, to have a bull market. There's a lot that we can certainly have, but I'm watching a lot of pieces, if you will.
Yeah, and look, there are some people who, I know the Fed took it down from 4 cuts to 2 cuts, and there are some people who don't think we're getting the 2 cuts. So we'll have to wait and see. Let's talk about NVIDIA, Jessica. We're talking about the run that this name has had, the split, and then another run to new highs. Some of your thoughts on NVIDIA, where it's headed.
Yeah, and today I really, Nicole, wanted to talk about AI. It's something we've talked about so very often. Last week we were talking about AI agents, and I just really want to talk about where I see 2025 going, which is another leg within that AI revolution. We've got to think when steam was introduced, we didn't have industrial revolution until 100 or 200 years later. So no, it's compounding, and hopefully it's not that long of a process, but it all points back to NVIDIA. NVIDIA is leading the charge in the transformative tech innovation. And I want to point out an event that's going to happen in Las Vegas, January 6th through the 10th. That's the CES. It is where Jensen Huang is actually headlining or opening the keynote to the most powerful tech event in the world. So that event tends to have groundbreaking announcements that shape the tech landscape from many, many fintech providers, not even just NVIDIA, but lots of technology that's there. I do think perhaps there's strategic timing where that presence would align with, we know, the very, very big event, which is the GTC in March 2025. But I do think anytime Jensen Huang just comes, he gives us a smile. He went on a podcast earlier and the market just rallied. So we're looking for any indications of that new type of innovation. And since there's an event right at the beginning of the year, I think it's a great time to position in preparation for that because we're still in the early stages of AI.
Yeah, I mean, CES is so exciting always, and it's always fun to see what the themes are and what people are talking about. Let's take a look at the chart. Kevin Green.
Well, the chart's still bullish here, Nicole. We have seen a little bit of a consolidation over the last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but the trend is still to the upside. And one thing to kind of note when it comes to NVIDIA is this cross for the MACD has actually been a really good indicator when you're looking at the daily time frame, a 1-year daily time frame here. And for Jessica and being, optimistic, this cross that's actually taking place right now, which the 12 EMA is going to be above the 26 EMA, is really bullish for this name. And usually in the past, when we have seen these crosses, the stock has moved around $30 to $35 to the upside once that actually does take place. We also saw a little bit of a reset when it came to the RS side, just showing that price momentum did kind of stall out. It did make lower highs as well as lower lows, but it is kind of contesting that trend right now. And we are continuing to see some support coming in at around $129. Last week, we saw the stock get down to around $127 and saw aggressive buying stepping in here. And that's actually being reflected within the volume profile that has been an area of resistance, now has turned into an area of support. So if you are a bull, you want to be able to hold 129 and continue to see some buyers stepping in. And if we do break that and go below, then you're looking at the 200-day moving average, which is sitting at around $119 for right now. Immediate area of resistance is going to be $150. A lot of options positioning sitting there. And if we actually do exceed that level, I would look at the next area of resistance at around $160, which would be the upper end or the resistance level on that channel line. So this one's still bullish, still has some indicators that really suggest that maybe it just had a nice little reset before trying to move higher.
Right, understood. I mean, watching this chart, a bullish chart, no doubt, Jessica. And I guess you think it's still going higher, right? I mean, you have goals for this one?
I don't want to set a price target for this one, but it's really understanding those key resistance lines and support, but then the catalyst that's needed to go above that. That's what I look for in order to understand where it's going forward. I think it's difficult to even put price targets on these types of securities because even the best analysts aren't doing a great job with that because it's consistently beating earnings. So I think it's undervalued. It's got room for momentum because of just this amazing revolutionary stage that we're in regard to AI.
And then we take a look at Amazon, which is up 50% for 1 year. It's been an incredible performer, just off the recent highs of 233, and not just retail e-commerce. I mean, so much more with cloud and AWS and all that. So some of your thoughts on Amazon and the catalyst there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where I want to focus on those models. So Amazon has Claude, which is Anthropic. That to me is a very, very true rival to ChatGPT. But what Amazon has is this infrastructure and these large language models that can be implemented. So there is something very important when we're considering this revolution and what that's going to look like. And what I talked about last week when we're going into AI agents, open source modeling and coders preference. And what I think is very interesting, due to the infrastructure, due to AWS, there's a lot of different verticals that this can fall into with Amazon and Anthropic, but that investment in Anthropic and the way that coders really can utilize AWS in tandem with that, because they're open source large language models, which is very important within the development world, allows them to be really streamlined, integrated within that infrastructure, and then see some enhancements and eventually those AI agents, which I am looking for, which I think is going to be the next catalyst for AI.
Right, understood. All right. Yeah, Anthropic certainly sort of came out, right, and then took over. Everybody started getting involved with that and investing in that too. Let's talk about that. Kevin Green, you're looking at the charts.
Yeah, for Amazon, this has been a stock that does like to trend fairly aggressively in a longer time frame here. If you can look at 6 months or 7 months of a bull trend, and then that's when we usually actually see it, reverse or correct. But when it does so pretty much in a really quick manner, and that's what we actually saw on the daily chart here. We saw this breakdown of the stock going below the 200-day moving average back in August, and it had a really quick reset before actually trending higher. And now we're in this megaphone pattern, or this expanding megaphone pattern. Just means that we are in a bullish trend, but we're going to see a little bit more volatility, and rightfully so. We can actually see that with the price action right now hitting the upper end of that resistance line, and we're trying to break up and break out here, Nicole. And if I were to put a support area on the chart, if we do see a little bit of a breakdown, the 20-period moving average, which we kind of just tested around 2 days ago, is going to be your first area of support. Next one is going to be $215, and then we break down to $200, which is going to be the support line on that megaphone pattern. And then to the upside, you could actually see an extension up to around $250. That's just taking the highs that we saw at $233 to the recent low over the last couple of trading sessions where it came to around $220. So taking that length, adding that to the highs is kind of where you get that $250 extension line here. RSI does continues to look actually bullish for this name, but MACD actually does show a little bit of a cross. Not a full-on bearish cross yet. We are still above the zero line, but it does kind of indicate that maybe a small consolidation or pullback could be on the horizon here for Amazon over the next couple of trading sessions before really trying to push higher here. But once again, this is another chart that just shows that the bullish trends within tech, as well as in consumer discretionary, remains intact here. And that's what we've seen with Amazon stock over the last couple of months.
All right. What an incredible chart this has been, right? I mean, all of these Mag 7 have certainly wowed Wall Street. I was in the elevator with the CEO of Anthropic maybe 8 months ago, and it's like that wild moment. You don't even know what to say, right? Because it's the beginning of the skyrocketing of Anthropic. Final thoughts, Jessica, on this name, and then we have Microsoft.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would love to know what you talked about in the elevator there, Nicole. But yeah, I do agree. It's the early stages. Sometimes we need to realize that there may not be as early adoption. So that's something to be cognizant of. But there is a lot that I am excited about.
All right, next up, Microsoft here, which really, you know, the high was actually back in the summer at 468. It's been chopping around. Some of your thoughts?
Yes. So OpenAI launched another model that's not widely accessible to the public yet, but it's very interesting because this is different. So we have another progress update with what's happening in regard to AI. So there is something called the ARC AGI prize, which is artificial general intelligence. And it's interesting, in order to pass that prize, you have to get a score of at least 85%. Why? I'm unsure. But the O3 model, which is by OpenAI, so of course connected to Microsoft, that had a score of 87%, but there's certain components that were taken to pace. So the goalpost was actually moved where they didn't get that ARC prize. What I think is very interesting, though, is that model scored so high. And that's just giving us an indication of how smart and how even quickly they become smarter these AI innovative models are. Now, what I think is interesting, it's not necessarily the same type of large language models that we're used to. There are a lot of LLMs that we can access. O3, what it does is it utilizes Monte Carlo simulations. So reading back to my favorite trading strategy is options, very similar, to optimize pathways to understand the right type of AI model. So the reason why it didn't win that prize, it's very expensive to do that. It's incredibly capital intensive to run those type of queries. However, running that query makes problem solving extremely quick and leads to better strategic alliances. So the way that OpenAI has done this in the past with previous models is they get many models. So if you're on ChatGPT and you notice you have something access to a many, that's a smaller version that is better for broader adaptation for someone who, the better use cases for you and I, rather than very deep architect developers. So I'm really excited for the launch of OpenAI's O3 model. I think we're going to see, again, the AI wars really heat up in 2025, and you can even see what I laid out last week and this week just with the new updates in AI.
Right. I love your passion about AI and all of this. This is something you've been talking about for so long. Let's talk, Kevin, about the charts. Please look at the technicals.
Yeah, when you look at Microsoft here, we actually did see a little bit of a value range, with the lows being at around $400 and then the upper end of that value range being at around $440. That just means that we had, for the better part of this year, actually a consolidation. And you're right, we actually saw a nice little breakout to the upside, but it was not able to sustain itself, and we went back within that range. And in fact, we are actually testing it right now with that 20-period moving average, Nicole. And unfortunately, it does look like we might be trying to touch that 200-day moving average. Now, that 200-day moving average is still moving to the upside, and that's because we have positive price advances over the last 200 days. But it is an area of support to be mindful of, and any type of material breakdown and break below that lower channel line, that $400 level, would be a little bit of a cause for concern when it comes to Microsoft here. If you're looking at an area of resistance, $440, which we're pretty much testing that right now, is going to be your first area of resistance. And then the next one, $465 to $467 is going to be your next area of resistance. RSI is actually still making higher highs and higher lows. That's something that you would like to see if you were a bull in this name. But MACD did just actually make a cross, a bearish cross, with a 12 EMA below the 26 here. I would say range bound until proven otherwise here, kind of at the upper end of that range. Maybe having some buyers kind of stepping in and taking a shot if it went down to that $400 level. And any further breakdown below that would be more of a cause for concern. But you know, the chart looks okay. It doesn't look like a lot of the other Mag 7 names, but it's been able to hold up and be able to provide some stability, at least for the latter part of this year.
All right, so some support, some stability. Thank you for the charts there. Jessica, your final quick thought, or maybe look ahead to 2025?
Yeah, I think it all really comes together. I want to see an easing Fed policy, because that's going to be very important for the consumer, especially if we have any implementation of tariffs. When we had tariffs in Trump 1.0, we were in a restrictive Fed. So I want to see an easing policy. And then, of course, just looking at all the data, I think AI is still a key theme. We're going to move into the next stage of that. And perhaps it might even be a little bit of a narrow rally, but that's okay. We've learned that that can hold up the market because of the large market capitalization that's there.
Good look there at NVIDIA, Amazon, Microsoft today. Thank you both for the big three. Great stuff. Kevin Green on the charts. Jessica Inskip, stockbrokers.com. Thank you.